Alright, hello, welcome back to my TouchDesigner tutorial series. In this video, we'll be making this dream cloud atmosphere texture type of thing. Yeah, the network is not super long. I would say it's more like intermediate stuff, but we'll just get started. So hopefully you enjoy. We're gonna start with just deleting everything as always. Nice. So we're going to start with the 3D geometry first. We're going to get a grid and we're going to set our rows and columns just to be 200 for right now. We're going to attach this to a twist, but we're not going to use this until like we've figured out how we actually want it to look. We can come back later. We're going to use a transform. We're going to add an attribute create, and lastly just a null. So I'm gonna finish setting up the render network and then we'll come back and look at all the parameters for here. So we're going to right click and add our geometry. We're gonna add a camera. We're gonna add a light. We're gonna add a render top and then just a null so we can look at this. And then for this texture, we're going to be using PBR as well. So we're just going to drag our PBR onto the geometry. And yeah, so just to start out, I'm going to add, I'm going to change our lights dimmer to 4 because I know it tends to be pretty dark typically, and we can adjust all of that in post, but it's just nice so we can see everything now. And I'm also going to just set my resolution to be 1920 by 1080, but any resolution should work if you're using the experimental version of TouchDesigner. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to our transform, and pretty much I just want the entire screen to be this grid. So the settings I used prior were 2.3 for scale Y and 1.2, wait. Oh, I'm so stupid. Okay, ignore all of that. So yeah, the scale we're going to use that I used before is 2.3 for scale X and 1.2 for scale Y. And then I just had my uniform scale at 2.5. So yeah, now we're nice and gridded out. Yeah. And then before we do the rest of before we start actually creating a map for this surface, we're just going to turn on our normals and tangents ahead of time because I know we'll be needing them. And yeah, so that's all for the 3D geometry. We're just going to start moving on to the mapping. We're going to start with a noise top. I'm once again going to just set my resolution to be 1920 by 1080. Also, up to your personal preference. And I'm going to go ahead and just set these parameters to how I want them. So for the period, I did 1.568, harmonics at 6, harmonic gain at 497.497, amplitude at 0.41, and that should be everything. And then for the transform, I've animated this so that translate Y is ABS time.seconds times 0.02. And this one is ABS time.seconds times 0.05. So we have movement within the noise, but it's also moving up over time. And this looks nice. Cool. So I have a habit of just putting nulls everywhere. I kind of just like to use them to like section off transitions. So I'm just going to add a null here for my sanity. Next thing we're going to add is a feedback. I'm going to add a slope, and I'm also going to add a noise connected to the feedback. We're going to put it in the first inlet, and then we're going to set the output to just noise. And then we're going to add a displace here and add a level afterwards, so we have some control. And we're going to add a composite, and we're going to add the null from over here into here, and the level also into the composite. So funny thing, actually really embarrassing thing. When I was actually making this, like I definitely thought that I had a feedback loop going in, but it turns out I did not. So you're actually not going to drag the comp onto the feedback. I mean, you're welcome to, but it's just not what I did for this tutorial. So fake feedback loop here. And yeah, we can just go ahead and start messing with these then. So for this first slope, I pretty much had the strength set to 30 and everything else was default. For this noise, I have the harmonic set to 5, the amplitude set to 0.05, and monochrome on. This displace should be default parameters, and then we just have the level to control how much of the effect is going in to our comp. So if we look here, there was a myriad of different operations that I really liked, and I'll come back to that at the end of this tutorial. But for right now, I'm just going to select vivid light, as I found out was the most pleasant one. So we see like this noise, but we also have this really wavy displaced pattern coming from the slope and the noise. Cool. We're going to add a null afterwards just for transition. Actually, should I? Yeah, I'm gonna make these like white so they really stand out. Yeah, right? I think that makes sense. Okay, now what we're gonna do is we're gonna split this texture into 3 different kind of maps. So we're gonna add a null connected here, and then we're gonna copy this and paste it 2 more times. And I'm just gonna extend each of them. So these are going to be the maps that we assign to our PBR. The first one we're going to name color. The second one we're going to name normal. And the third one we're going to name height. For the color, we're going to insert a lookup. For the normal, we're going to insert a normal, obviously. Oh, that's okay. And for the height, we're going to add a monochrome. I believe the height map always just works best in monochrome, but I actually experimented with turning it off since the color we have is so like minimal. So feel free to play with that as well later. The last thing I'm going to add here is a custom component that I will link in the description. It is called the Color Lovers Pick, and it's absolutely fucking amazing. So we're going to plug this into the lookup, and immediately we already have this beautiful dance of colors. The one color scheme that I chose for this is Good Friends. And if you don't have the same color palettes here as me, I believe it just sources them from a website. I will just leave the name of this actual palette in the description below. Also, wait, hold up 1 second. Yeah, also immense shout out to Yasmino for making this palette. This will be in the description below. Okay, so now that we have pretty much all of this set up, we can go ahead and assign these to our PBR. So we're going to add the color to the base color map. We're going to add the normal to the normal map. We're going to enable the height map, and then we're going to add the height to the height map and displace the vertices. Okay, so as you can see, we have this similar effect, but it looks very dark. It's very dark in here. So we're going to add a level and set the brightness 1 to 2. Lovely change. And I'm also just going to add another level right here And I'm going to set this brightness to 1.148 and the contrast to 0.77. Little bit more of a muted tone. And then after here, I'm going to add an HSV adjust, and I'm going to set the hue offset to -30. We're going to add a Luma level. Don't know why this is here, but I guess saving it for later. And then from here, I'm going to add another transition null. So you can just assign white to this. Okay. Forgive me. I have turned on my fan. I'm sorry. It's hot. Okay. Anyway, picking up from where I left off. We're gonna add an edge top, and we're going to add a level top connecting to this edge. So for this edge, we're gonna set our black level to be 0.223 and our strength to be 10. So we get like kind of just these outlines of the noise. And then we're going to go to our level and set the opacity to 0.332. You can always change that depending on how much you like. We're going to insert a composite and attach this. And we're going to be using the negate operation, and this really gives that shine to the image. You can experiment with more if you want, but I found that I like the number that I chose. Yeah, so that is that. And the last thing we're going to do is we're going to add some blurring around the edges. So we're going to add a Luma blur, and we're going to add a ramp right here. For this ramp, we're going to put, I would say, a notch kind of like in between the DAT and the text box. We're going to set this to black, and we're going to put, actually we can move it maybe a little bit to the left and add another one right here and set this one to white. And then we're going to change our type to circular, and we're just going to adjust it until we have the corners right here are not white. And then we're going to set our period to 2. And you can also adjust this based off of how much blur you want. So we're going to insert this into the second inlet of the Luma blur. And we're going to change our white filter width to, I think, 16. Yeah. So now around here, it's less in focus. And you can change how much of that you want to be in focus by controlling how much of the white is on the screen. So if I do this versus like now only this small part is in focus. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the main effect of this visual. You can also add a noise right here and change the output to input times noise. Set the noise to be random. Put the amplitude, I liked 0.042 and the offset of 1. So now we kind of have this, if you look in really closely, this grain effect also, which I think is flattering. And for this one, I'm also just going to add another level. Or maybe we can just go back to this Luma level and increase the brightness by 1. Yeah, I think this looks a lot better. Yeah, the last things I wanted to show you were some other composite operations that we can use that give you different effects. Let me first look at what they were, though. So I've added in back my annotation that has all the comp functions. I guess originally I had this as hard light, which is kind of a more neutral function for this. I also found that glow gave me a really cool effect. Glow, which is like more of these rainbow fractals and a bit more movement. We can try heat. Slightly different, I guess more watery and more of that iridescence. And we can try screen. Oh, this is definitely more cloudy. I feel like I'm annotating these so poorly, but like I guess you see it for yourself. Yeah, definitely more cloudy. This one's actually really nice. Um, and then Z film. Yeah, also kind of like this wall with like the chunks going through it. Wall chunks. But anyway, I'm gonna set it back to vivid light. And the last thing I would recommend also is playing around with the display scale. So you can have it a bit more up. Oh, that's not what I wanted. I wanted 2. There we go. And this just makes it feel a bit more spatial. Yeah. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed. I feel like I've been expanding my TouchDesigner knowledge, and it's been really nice. But as always, if you have any tips or things I could optimize better for CPU performance, especially, your info and suggestions are always much appreciated. But until the next video, yeah, bye-bye. Okay, actually, I'm gonna end the tutorial right here. I'm gonna let my MacBook cool down because she is overheating. And I mean, I guess I don't have to say any of this to you. It's just gonna be one cut. Goodbye.